Let's see how we're doing with our directional terminology. Hopefully you've had a chance to put some answers in these blanks, and we're going to go over those answers. Just as a reminder, the anatomical position is a standardized method of observing or imaging the body that allows precise and consistent anatomical reference. So this drawing is mostly in the anatomical position. The difference is it looks like the head is tilted to the side, but the anatomical position would be if this was facing the observer, you're the observer. The arm is in the anatomical position in that the thumb is facing laterally. And if we could see the legs, the feet would be flat on the floor pointing towards you, the observer. So this is in essence the anatomical position. So let's go over some of these examples. The urinary bladder, located in the pelvic cavity, is what to the small intestines, which is located in the abdominal pelvic cavity, or more of the abdominal cavity. So the correct answer there would be inferior. The bladder is below the small intestines. Metacarpals, which are in your hand, specifically the palm of your hand, are proximal to the phalanges. Therefore, the phalanges would be distal to the metacarpals. The gallbladder is inferior to the liver. The gallbladder is a small sac that holds bile, and it is located just below the liver. The trachea and esophagus are tubes, both located in your neck. And as you can see, the trachea, which typically can be seen with these cartilaginous rings that keep the trachea from collapsing, that trachea is in front of the esophagus. So we say the trachea is anterior to the esophagus. Lungs are superior to the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a flat muscle that separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. So if the lungs are in the thoracic cavity, they would be superior to the diaphragm. The gallbladder and appendix are ipsilateral. They are both located on the right side. The gallbladder is in what we would call the right upper quadrant. The appendix, which is located down here, is in the right lower quadrant. This drawing doesn't show the tibia and femur, but hopefully you were resourceful and found that the tibia is distal to the femur. The femur is in your thigh. The tibia, also known as your shin bone, is below the knee. Same thing for the fibula. The fibula is below the knee, but it is lateral to the tibia. Your brain is deep to the skull because the skull is superficial in order to protect the brain. Your pinky is medial to the thumb. Your thumb is, when it's in the anatomical position, lateral. The pinky would be medial. Your thoracic vertebrae are posterior to the sternum. Intermediate to these two would be your heart. Your heart is located in between your thoracic vertebrae and your sternum. And then finally, the spleen and appendix are contralateral. The spleen is in the upper left quadrant, and the appendix is in the lower right quadrant. Okay, so hopefully you're beginning to get the idea of these directional terms. The next thing I want to do is go quickly through the 11 organ systems. So I'm going quickly and expect you to go back and read through these a little closer and pick up any details that I may have not mentioned. But in essence, we have to go through each of the 11 systems, know what the components are, so that would be more the anatomy, the structures, the organs, and then the basic function of each of these systems. The first one is the integumentary system. We're going to cover that in Chapter 5. This is going to be our first organ system. It consists of your skin and other structures such as hair, fingernails and toenails, sweat glands, and oil glands. The function I think we already know, is primarily to protect our body from the external environment. It also regulates body temperature by sweating. It also helps eliminate some waste in that sweat. And it helps produce vitamin D. So our body can produce its own vitamin D, but you need to have skin, you need to have sunlight to do so. And then it detects a lot of things in our environment, so a lot of sensory neurons in our skin. The skeletal system are your bones and joints, as well as cartilages that might be found at joints. Function is to provide support and protection, also provide an attachment site for muscle in order to move the entire body or parts of the body. It also is involved in producing our blood cells. So it has bone marrow that synthesizes red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Muscular system involves skeletal muscle. We typically learn about cardiac muscle in the cardiovascular system and smooth muscle, which is located throughout the body. But all your skeletal muscles collectively make up your muscular system. These muscles provide body movements, maintain posture, and generate most of the heat produced by the body. The nervous system, brain, spinal cord, nerves, as well as special sense organs like eyes, ears, generates nerve impulses we call action potentials, detects changes in the body's internal and external environments, interprets this information in order to make changes and maintain homeostasis. Those are the organ systems we do in A&P1. In A&P2, we will learn about hormones and the endocrine system. Hormones are also going to be involved in regulating body activities like the nervous system does, but the endocrine system does it a little bit differently by using hormones as the messengers instead of nerves and neurotransmitters. Cardiovascular, blood, heart, and blood vessels. And the job of all these is to be able to distribute molecules throughout the body, whether it is oxygen and carbon dioxide or nutrients and waste. In order to get these molecules from one place to another, we need a bloodstream, and we need a pump to move that blood. Also involved in acid-base balance, temperature regulation, fluid levels. The cardiovascular system does quite a bit for us, but the number one job is transportation. Then we have the lymphatic and immune system, which is involved in fluid regulation as well, but the immune system component is protecting you from disease-causing microbes. And many of these immune organs or lymphatic organs you may have heard of but didn't know that these were involved in your immune system. But the spleen, the thymus, lymph nodes, these immune cells are produced in your bone marrow. Bone marrow is very important for your immune system. Next system, respiratory system. I think we have heard of lungs and your throat or pharynx, your voice box and larynx, trachea, bronchial tubes that lead to the lungs. And the respiratory system is primarily involved in gas exchange. We exchange oxygen and CO2, carbon dioxide. Also very important in regulating pH of the body. Digestive system we're very familiar with because we typically enjoy eating food, but we eat that food in order to have nutrients that the body needs. So the digestive system will break down food into smaller units in order to absorb them into the bloodstream. Some organs you may not immediately think of being part of the digestive system include your liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. Then we have the urinary system, kidneys, ureters, urinary bladder, and urethra. And these organs are all helping remove waste from your blood. We often say the kidneys filter blood, but what we're filtering is any kind of waste that might accumulate in your bloodstream, or any excessive levels of certain molecules, like if there's too much potassium in the body, the kidneys will filter that out of the blood. So the buzz phrase is filtering blood. And then finally, reproductive systems, female versus male. These are the last things we do in A&P2. You've probably heard of ovaries in females, testes in males. Those are the gonads. There are also some accessory organs in both females and males. But the goal is to be able to produce sperm and egg, or gametes, in order to produce new organisms or offspring. So that concludes our discussion on the 11 organ systems. You should be familiar with those, knowing the organs involved and the primary functions of each. The next lecture, we will begin our discussion on homeostasis.